Welcome to Oc4 Presents. I'm Michelle Wojcicki. We're fortunate today to have as our guest Pete Waldmeier, a Detroit news columnist and past president and secretary of the Old Newsboys Goodfellow Fund of Detroit. Pete, welcome.
Well, thank you. Got all that in, I see. So that's great. Yeah, that's a long name. We pretty much call it the Goodfellows anymore, you know.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very interesting, illustrious history with the Goodfellows of Detroit. Now, I understand from what I was reading about your organization, it started as a cartoon.
Yeah, well, it was prompted by a cartoon in the paper of a child who was forgotten at Christmas time. It's a famous old cartoon that's been around. That was back in the early 1900s. Then about 1914, a guy named Thomas drew another cartoon of the boy he used to be, James Brady, who was an IRS agent here in town, of all things. He was the guy who founded the organization. Cartoon appeared in the Detroit News of a man dressed, very prosperous gentleman with a bowler hat in those days, with sort of the ghost of a young boy walking alongside of him. And what Brady had done was, Brady had been a newsboy years ago, as everybody, you got your newspapers, you bought it from a kid on the street corner. And most of those kids, a lot of those kids had grown up to be doctors and lawyers and merchant chiefs and everything else. So he brought them together in 1914 and said, there are a lot of poor kids out here. What we ought to do is sell papers at our old corners one day now and raise some money, and we'll give it, and we'll get some gifts for these kids. That was the foundation of the Old Newsboys Goodfellow Fund of Detroit.
Okay.
From that point forward, that was 1914, and it's been going ever since. I was not there in 1914.
Oh, good. I'm glad you clarified that.
And for years we had this, for years it was made up of kids who had sold papers on street corners, and then it became kids who sold papers on routes around the city, and then it became people who worked in advertising, television, and public relations.
Now, what I'm familiar with is No Kitty Without a Christmas. I think that's probably what most people are familiar with your organization.
Everybody tries to change it to No Child Without a Christmas. Now, the motto is, the square motto is No Kitty Without a Christmas. There's no kitties.
Tell us about that.
Well, that was what Brady told his friends. We should not have children. We should not have kiddies, is what they call people in little tykes in 1914 without a Christmas, without having something for Christmas. So his theory was, you know, a lot of people say, well, you know, you get a basket of food, or we're going to send you toys or something. That's what we're into. What we do is the Old Newsboys Goodfellow Fund of Detroit, which is the original organization. You'll see Goodfellows from now on. This is the middle of November. You'll see them from now on all over Oakland County, Wayne County, Macomb County, everywhere. You know, selling Goodfellow papers. Those are sort of spin-off groups from our group. People who used to be in this group moved out, picked up the idea.
I
don't have any copyright on it or anything else. I mean, it's a good idea. But what we do is we do 41,000 packages for children between the ages of kindergarten and the 8th grade in the Detroit public school system. We have the outreach there, and we also have it in, well, actually, most anybody can qualify, but that's where the bulk of our kids come from. The package contains a pair of jeans, a sweatshirt, socks, underwear, minimum of 3 books, toothpaste, toothbrush, library card, a hat. Hats, something like this, but not with the tag on them. Hats, gloves, scarves. These are hats that we wear. You'll see them in Detroit on.
Watch for those hats.
Yeah, watch for that hat. And some people want. We have Detroit police officers also that go out on the sales day and sell papers. And I'm getting ahead of myself. The package contains all of these things, and then we do about 15,000 dolls. that are all dressed by volunteers.
Wow.
And they're packeted, and little girls or little boys who want a doll can have one. And we put a toy in the package for mostly the toys in the boys package.
So first thing you do is sell the papers.
First thing we do is raise the money.
Raise the money.
Then we actually first thing we do is we buy all the we buy all the stuff, and then we have to pay for it. And that's what we're doing now. That's what we will be doing. We began buying the jeans, for instance. We put a pair of jeans in. 41,000 pairs of jeans is a lot of jeans. And we get a big help from the Detroit Free Press as well on that. And their Ruth Alden Fund buys the jeans. Although they're unisex jeans anymore, you don't find the jeans. Everybody, they all got the same fly in them. You know? They used to buy the girls' clothing. Now they buy half the jeans for us because they figure it's about 50-50 boys and girls.
How are the children selected?
Well, when the child comes to school, the teachers hand out application cards, and they take the application and they bring it home, and Mrs. Jones fills out a card for Johnny and Mary and Susie and what their ages are, and then they bring it back to school, and the teacher goes through them, make sure that because Johnny's in the 8th grade and Susie's in the 2nd grade, that Mrs. Jones hasn't made out 2 sets. You know, that's the first screening process.
Okay.
I say this because I think there are people out there probably who are donating, and they really want to know if we have controls about these things, and we do. Well, we don't kick anybody out, but we try to keep a little bit. And then it goes to into the principal, and then an attendance officer that has most of the attendance officers know these children and the families pretty well, and they screen them, and then they come to us and we screen them again on a computerized system where we kick out duplicates, and then we pack the bundle. Mrs. Jones gets a boy 5, a girl 3, a boy 8 in a packet, and they go out to a police precinct in their area, and then they are told to go to the police precinct and pick it up just before Christmas. And if they don't, we find them. Detroit police officers are Wayne County Sheriff Supply. We're classic mooches. This is charity without overhead. We mooch from everybody, and we shamefacedly mooch anything.
I'll tell you, Pete, I heard that the Goodfellows shopping list rivals Santa's. What's on your list for this year?
I had a copy of it here. You know, it sort of changes every year, but this one's got 246,000 pairs of socks, 136,000 books, 156,000 books, 246,000 boys and girls briefs, 41,000 packages of candy, 41,000 hats, dental kits, pairs of jeans, sweatshirts for boys and girls, 78,000 toys, and this says $13,000, and I think that's probably more accurate than the 15,000 figure I gave you before. The dolls, again, we buy them bare bones. We send them out to groups all over the metropolitan area in Detroit, many in Oakland County, some groups will dress 1,000 of them for us.
So you have volunteers that actually put the packets together and the packages?
Because this is a humongous logistics problem, you know. So we contract with a corporation called the Krolik Corporation, which really boils down to one fellow, a guy named Pat Leahy, who has done this for us for a number of years. And he will hire some seasonal workers at minimum wage, the same people. They're almost like, believe me, they're almost like volunteers for the hours they put in. And they come into our warehouse. We keep a warehouse. And he's got the production line all up. And to put together, because, you know, the nature of the thing, Shelley, we have to buy this stuff, start buying it in January. We don't get decent prices. We can't just drive into Myers or Kmart or someplace and say, give us 41,000 pairs of jeans. You know, I mean, it just doesn't work that way. So we set a dollar figure on the box. It's probably $32, $33 a box, $35 maybe, and we buy all of the stuff and we pay to have it packed, and then where I'm saying we mooch is that Bob Ficano, the Wayne County Sheriff, for instance, comes and and sends people over, sends trucks and everything else, takes it out to the police precincts, and the police department does that as well. And then the Detroit Police handle all of the distribution for us, as well as raising, I don't know, 100,000 or so on sales day, which this year will be.
Is that your goal for '97?
Our goal for 97 is $1.5 million. It's $1.5 million, $1.5 million, $1,500,000, however you want to say it. And we will do on sales day, which will be December the 1st this year.
Okay.
The first Monday after Thanksgiving is the way to remember it.
It's always
that is ours. Now, there may be in Oakland County, there may be several groups that are selling them on different days, but that is the Detroit Old Newsboys Goodfellow Fund.
Okay, and it's always the Monday after Thanksgiving?
Always the Monday after Thanksgiving,
Okay.
and that is sort of our official kickoff of our drive. We'll raise on that day probably little over $200,000. Much of it will come from Detroit police officers who are selling on street corners for us in the morning, and then our membership, which we'll get to in a moment, I'm sure.
Yes.
Talking about who the members are. Anyway, that's our kickoff. It's a focal point kickoff. Then each of our members sends out letters to their friends. And some of them are not some are just perfect strangers. I send out, I don't know, 1,500, 1,600 letters, and I'll get about 80% response. It's amazing.
Tell me about your membership.
Well, the membership is now comprised, I would think the number's right around, it fluctuates, around 230, 240 men and women. It's despite the sexist nature of the name. It is not the, we could call it the old news person's good person fund, I suppose, but and we have been through this before, but it has stayed that way. Pretty much the old newsboys. We do have many women members. Our incoming, well, our second vice president now is Kathy Garcia Lindstrom, who's a Detroit police commander. We've had women presidents. We've got women on the board. We've got men on the board. Most of us are people who have sold the paper in the past, or worked in advertising or television or public relations, or have just been interested.
So can anyone get involved in Goodfellows?
Just about anybody can get involved in it. Yeah, we do have a sort of, we have sort of a level that, you got to raise some money. We just don't want you to get in there and put it on your resume. I've been striving for years to put a floor that everybody had to raise, because some number. I will raise, and many of us will raise over $100,000 a year on our own hook. And that's, it's difficult to do.
You guys do a lot more than just the annual No Kitty Without a Christmas, don't you? Have a variety of other programs?
Yes, we do. We have 2 other programs. Well, actually, we have 3 other programs. Basic program to the schools, 2 basic programs to the schools are our shoe program, which is, I think you have some of the posters are up here, in fact, on the set today. The shoe program, we have a deal with Sibley Shoes. We pay a flat rate for a pair of shoes. They give us books of certificates and we give them to the attendance officer. And for instance, Johnny hadn't come to school for 3 days. The teacher tells the principal tells the attendance officer, goes out to the home, and Mrs. Jones says, I'm really sorry, Johnny can't come. He doesn't have any shoes to wear. And so the attendance officer gives her a coupon, and then they can go to any one of a number of Sibley stores and make a choice selection. When I was growing up, everybody who got Goodfellow shoes wore the same old black shoes, and you could tell every kid in the class whose folks didn't have any money. So we've sort of got away from that. I mean, they probably can choose between 15, 16 different styles of shoes and things. You have to think of that. If you'll notice, none of our publicity, incidentally, any of our advertising that we do does not bear pictures of poor little sad-faced children, rolling around all us nice, fat cats who are assuaging our consciences by giving them money or gifts or something. We don't exploit the children. We just don't. We draw the line there. You will see sometimes on some of our promotional material there will be faces of kids, but my son is on one. And, we use models for that. We don't. Anyway,
Beyond the shoes, I think you have
beyond
a
the shoes,
dental
we have
program?
we have a dental program.
What's that about?
And again, it's you know, the child doesn't come to school for 2 or 3 days, and you know, the child's got a toothache. It's got a bad need. Now, perhaps the parent has insurance. Perhaps they could do it through welfare. Perhaps they could do it a lot of ways. But the reality is that the child has not got the teeth fixed, and so we get them to the UAD dental school, and they do it at a very minimum rate for us, and they send us a bill every 3 or 4 months. We usually have to call them up and tell them to send us a bill. But we'll spend $70,000, $80,000 a year on those. That way the child then can go back to school. The object is to keep the kids, have them have a little respect, have them have some good clothes, have them have shoes, have them have their teeth fixed. And then, when, of course, in the summertime we have a campership program. Now, we don't run a camp. We don't have the wherewithal, because it is basically just about 99, 44, 100% volunteer organization. We can't run a camp. But what we do is we very carefully screen a number of camps, maybe 20 or 25 a year, and we make a grant to a camp. We say, if it's 100 a week for kids, okay, here's $500, get 5 kids and take them to camp at your camp. And we spread it around through all of these different camps. We also have a committee that goes out and looks at the camps, if you can believe it, so that we know that the money is going where we tell people.
Pete, this sounds so time intensive.
It
you
is.
were telling me you have only 1 staff person.
Yeah, 1 staff person, and then we got a lot of very, very dedicated volunteers. Many of the volunteers are dedicated basically because, you know, I don't want to override, you know, but a lot of us got gifts when we were kids. You know, a lot of us had cop come to the door on Christmas Eve. In the old days, that's the way we used to deliver the packages. And you know, Ed McNamara, the Wayne County executive, Ernie Lofton, the UAW vice president, Coleman Young, the former mayor of Detroit. These are all people who have been active in our organization and and believe me, Coleman Young and I being in the same organization is really interesting. The things we've gone at.
That might be a whole other show, huh?
The one thing we do have in common is, besides being surly, is that we were both recipients of Goodfellow packages. My mother raised 3 children by herself, and Ed McNamara was in that. You know, the old Irish group that, you know, they were eating a lot of potatoes in those days. And
so a lot of your members were recipients.
A lot of our members were also recipients. And some of those that are more, Conrad Koski is a former president of the First of Michigan Corporation, was a recipient. And Conrad runs our program, our purchasing program. And I mean, what can you have? A guy that's a former head of a big stock brokerage firm as the head of your purchasing program. We use his expertise. Doesn't collect a dime. We don't have limousines and board meetings in Bermuda and, you know, fat lunches, and we don't buy diamond rings for everybody for Christmas and things. I mean, you know. Why
do you stay involved?
We pay all our own. Well, because it's you know, you owe something to the community, and it's something that I can do. I mean, there aren't a lot of things I can do, you know, without, I shill for this organization, I write columns about it, and I tell people, you know, I'm shilling for these people today. You know? Most people trust me to give them my version of the truth, you know.
Sure.
And it is something I guess it's because it's there. I don't know. You know.
How long have you been a member?
God, I don't know, 25 years or so. I wouldn't join it originally. I always thought it was just a bunch of old guys who sat around and had cocktails and talked about the old days, you know. And then I realized, I began to, you know, as I grew a little bit older, I began to realize what was going on. And then I began to realize that I got packages of this thing, and I truly wish that we must have 5 million alumni of people that got packages. I mean, if we're giving out 41,000 a year, you can figure it out. I mean, you know, there got to be all kinds of people out there. And if every one of them, just everybody who ever got a package would send us $1, you know, we'd have a lot of money toward the 1.5 million.
To recirculate, give back.
To recirculate the money back, you know.
Tell me about the Ford Motor City Bowl. That's another program you guys have.
This year, well, we're just getting into that this year. What we've been doing is looking to diversify a little bit too. We wanted to get, for instance, the breakfast, the Goodfellow breakfast, which was in September this year. We've moved it back into September so that we'll have it separated from this goal. Some other things that we can get exposure. If we make money on it, fine. Our drive, this is a very unusual drive. We don't raise money the year round normally. We raise money from the first Monday in December through New Year's. And I'm always in favor of win or lose, whether we did it or not, declare victory and get out. I should have been in charge of the Vietnam War. So we want to just, get it over with. I don't want to stretch this out all year long. Well, the Motor City, or the Ford Motor City Bowl, will be held at the Silverdome this year. It's a college football game, bowl game. Teams to be decided even as we speak, I suppose. And George Perlis, the former Michigan State football coach, who coached in the Goodfellow game twice, and the old Goodfellow football game, and played in the old Goodfellow football game in the 50s. George is now the executive director of this, and George says, hey, we ought to make some connections. So we're working on a connection with them. This year we're going to send a whole bunch of kids, and we're looking for people to sponsor some of these kids to send. I think it's, a couple bucks or $5. We'll be. There'll be plenty of publicity on that. Just check your local paper.
sounds like a great program.
We hustle all the time. You have to hustle, but we don't hustle year round. Although we do have our board meets every month, except for August, I think.
How can people get involved? Someone sitting at home saying, boy, this is something it sounds like a very worthwhile project. There are a lot of different ways people can support organizations, and this sounds like a good one. How can someone get involved?
I think you will be, you'll be showing, you'll be supering, I think, on the screen sooner or later here, the address of the organization and the phone number. We have all kinds of things. You can dress dolls. Work up a group that'll dress dolls. Figure out some way. People do all manner of things for fundraising. For instance, some of the people that I solicit money from, I got a check 3 or 4 years ago. The first one I got was for $4,421.16. I said, this is really odd. What is this all about? Why would you get a check? You write a check for whatever you're going to get it for.
Sure.
Right? I called the person up and I said, how did you arrive at that number? And they said, well, we were going to have a Christmas party at work, and maybe it wasn't 4, maybe it was 2,000. Anyway, it was just this odd number. And so we're going to have a Christmas party at work the company was having, and we decided we would give it to a charity. And so what we did was we got 3 estimates on Christmas parties, took the middle estimate, wrote the check, and sent it to you.
There you go.
People, that's things people can do. They can think of innovative ways to raise money. I do little things, through the year, during this time, to raise money.
Pete, what's your biggest hurdle for the organization?
Biggest hurdle is, right now it's is maintaining, the level of quality and trying to get all that stuff that we want to give kids into that package without having to increase the size of the package. Because every inch you put on that package is another 41,000 inches that you got to have in a warehouse in trucks and on pallets and things. It's the logistics, just defeat. That's one of the big hurdles. Actually, this program there is so much residual goodwill out there, basically because over the years, the 83 years that this organization has been in, we haven't had any scandals. We don't have people running off with the money. We're all insured, that's for sure. But we have, 2 or 3 people have to sign checks, and that's it. Mm-hmm. People know that if you give me $1, I will spend $1 on the package.
Where do you see the organization in 5-10 years? What is the future?
I would hope there wouldn't be any
Goodfellows?
need for it. We keep struggling to get it down. And why, in an era of so much prosperity, we have so many needy kids. That's the sad part, I think. And I would I would love to see it go away. It ain't going to go away, nowhere. There's always going to be a need in certain areas of our community. Oakland County is very, very generous to the old Newsboys Goodfellow Fund. They're really generous. I make a pie chart of where my every year on the great computers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I make a pie chart on the computer, and by zip code, and I just look to see where this money's coming from. Mainly because I like to take it to my boss, the publisher of the Detroit News, and Mark Silverman now, my new publisher, and I will do this for him. Go in there and show them. These are the people who were reading me. These are the people who are think enough of me to send me money, and think enough of this organization to send money. And where does it come from? Wayne County, Oakland County, Macomb County, what the averages are out of them. So you get an idea where we have actually, people are very good to us, and I like to thank them all. Frankly, I wish I could thank them all individually.
Back to No Kitty Without a Christmas, it's a published paper. It's a special publication, is that right?
Yeah,
for that particular campaign?
We do for that day. We actually there are two different things on sales day, again, which is December the 1st this year, and people will be out selling them on corners. There are probably 30 or 40 Goodfellow organizations around the metropolitan area.
Are they all connected?
And no, they're not. Ours is, as I say, we don't have any overall group. These are,
okay.
But what they do is they raise money in their area, and they either spend it in their area. A lot of them send us the money that they raise because they know that we will handle it for them. A lot of them, in Bloomfield Hills, you don't have a lot of people that need, Goodfellow packages. So people who are selling out there will steer the money someplace else where it's needed, and rightfully so, and we thank them for it. We've got a whole big organization going on, and a lot of people all over sending us money.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful what you're doing, and certainly a good cause. And we wish you good luck in the future. Good luck this 1997. We'll be watching out for the red hats.
Look for the red hats and the police officers and everybody else in the newspapers, and we will. You'll be able to see them because they'll have a fold over, and this special edition will be sold by the Detroit Police. We print that quite a bit in advance, so that we'll have, so the Detroit Police can get out real early in the morning. They start around midnight, and they'll be working the corners, and they'll be working the factory gates and things like that for us.
It was a pleasure to talk with you, Pete. Thanks for your time. You've been listening to Pete Waldmeier, a Detroit columnist and volunteer with the Goodfellows Fund of Detroit. I'm Michelle Wojcik, and this is OC4 Presents.
On Monday, December 21st, 79 men gathered in front of the Detroit News Building, then located on Shelby Street. To help identify the men as legitimate old newsboys, each was given a hat band and streamer badge bearing the name Goodfellow. Before leaving for their corners, they posed in the snow for a photograph. Said Brady, "It's just the sort of day for this thing. Christmas is in the air. But then who cares what kind of weather we have when we are doing a good work."
Goodfellow paper!
Extra! Here you are!
Goodfellow paper!
Be a good fellow and get your paper here.
Goodfellow
Buy a paper. Be a good fellow.
Extra! Help the kids that Santa won't visit.
Anything you care to give. Thank you and Merry Christmas.